All right, let's get right into it. This idea of a future where AI is guiding your every single move, well, it's not some far off sci fi thing anymore. It's here. It's happening right now, quietly shaping your life in ways you probably don't even see. So the real question isn't if we're going to let AI make choices for us, it's whether we've already handed over that power without even realizing it.
I mean, think about the last time you watched Netflix. That movie you picked, there's a whopping 80% chance you didn't really pick it at all. It was just served up to you by their recommendation algorithm. That's 4 out of every 5 things you watch. Or how about shopping? A truly massive 35% of Amazon's yearly revenue, we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars, comes directly from their product recommendations. They aren't just selling you stuff. They're predicting what a huge chunk of the global economy is going to buy next. And YouTube, it's even more powerful. A full 70% of the time you spend on that platform is spent watching videos suggested by the algorithm. It is literally steering your attention from one video to the next. So when you start adding all this up, you land on a really big question. In this world of endless suggestions and perfectly tailored feeds, who's actually in the driver's seat? Is it you? Or is it the code that was built to predict you? So why on earth are we doing this? I mean, it's easy to just write it off as, being lazy, but the real reason is actually a lot more fascinating. We're not just being passive about it. We're actively looking for a way out of the crushing weight of modern choice. You see, there's this psychological idea called ego depletion. It basically says our willpower is like a muscle. It gets tired. There was this incredible study on Israeli parole judges that shows it perfectly. Right after a break, like lunch, their favorable rulings were at about 65%. But right before a break, when they were tired and hungry, it dropped to almost zero. They just defaulted to the easier, safer answer, no. And then you pile on top of that what psychologist Barry Schwartz calls the paradox of choice. We think more options are a good thing, but a lot of the time, they just freeze us up. Standing in the cereal aisle staring at 100 different boxes doesn't really feel like freedom, does it? It feels more like a test you're about to fail. Algorithms give us a shortcut out of that anxiety. This gets into a really cool idea. Are you a maximizer or a satisficer? Maximizers are the people who have to check every single option to find the absolute perfect best. And yeah, they get better results on paper, like a 20% higher salary. But here's the kicker. They actually feel worse about their choice. Satisficers, on the other hand, just find something that's good enough and they're way happier. So an algorithm's good enough suggestion, it's basically a shortcut to being a happy satisficer. And all of this really boils down to the insane power of defaults. Get this. In countries where you have to actively check a box to opt in to be an organ donor, the rates hover around 15%. But in countries where the default is that you are a donor unless you opt out, the rate is over 90%. We just go with the default. And that's exactly what we do with algorithmic suggestions. We just accept them like they were our idea to begin with. Okay, but all this convenience, this efficiency, it has to come at a price, right? In our search for this perfectly smooth, optimized life, what are the essential, maybe messy parts of being human that we're giving up? This is where things get a little more philosophical. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre, he had a name for this. He called it bad faith. It's this little act of self-deception we do, where we pretend we're not actually free. We blame our choices on our job or our family or the algorithm. It's the grown-up version of the dog ate my homework. It's saying, hey, I didn't pick this song, the playlist did. Sartre's most famous line is, "We are condemned to be free." And what he meant was, we can't escape it. There's no getting out of being responsible for our choices. Even the choice to not choose, well, that's a choice too. And handing over our decisions to an algorithm might be one of the biggest choices we ever make. And that responsibility matters because our choices are literally how we build who we are. The philosopher Shandon Valor calls this auto-fabrication. The idea is we aren't just born with a fixed personality, we create ourselves, piece by piece, with every decision. So, what happens to that process of self-creation when we stop making the decisions? And this leads to a really crucial warning from Valor. The real danger here isn't that machines are going to get too smart and take over. The real danger is that we'll get so used to them doing things for us that we lose our own autonomy, that we just forget how to choose for ourselves. A perfectly optimized life would also get rid of all the messy, inefficient parts of being human that actually lead to our greatest moments. Think about serendipity, like when Alexander Fleming accidentally discovered penicillin from a contaminated lab dish. That's a mistake. Or how we learn better when things are a little bit harder. And creativity? A lot of the time it comes from boredom, like when J.K. Rowling came up with the entire idea for Harry Potter while stuck on a delayed train.
So let's zoom out a little bit. This isn't just about you and me and our personal lives. When billions of us start handing over our tastes to the same few systems, it creates this massive ripple effect that changes our entire culture. Just look at music. Studies show that over the last 50 years, the diversity of notes and chords in popular music has been consistently going down. Today, hit hip-hop songs are over a minute shorter than they were 2 decades ago. They call this stream bait pop. It's music engineered to work well on a passive playlist, and it's leading to a world that just sounds more and more the same.
And if you want the perfect analogy for what's happening, just look at the GPS in your pocket. A huge study found that the more people rely on GPS, the worse their natural navigation skills and spatial memory get. The very tool that helps us explore more is actually making us worse explorers.
And you can literally see the evidence in our brains. London taxi drivers, who have to memorize thousands of streets for a test called the knowledge, have been shown to have a larger hippocampus. That's the part of the brain that handles spatial memory. It's a perfect use it or lose it example for our cognitive skills. You use that muscle, it gets stronger. You outsource it to an app, and it shrinks.
This quote from the researchers who did that study just nails it. We get the convenience of going anywhere, but we lose the fundamental human skill of actually finding our own way. And that same paradox applies to so much more than just directions.
And the effects aren't just in our heads, they're in our wallets. The International Monetary Fund is warning that AI is likely going to make inequality a lot worse. In advanced economies, almost 60% of jobs are exposed. It's creating this huge divide. People who can leverage AI are going to see their wages skyrocket, and people who can't, well, they risk being left even further behind.
So this all brings us to a final, really critical choice we have to make. And look, this isn't about being pro or anti-technology. It's about a conflict between two very human desires, the push for a perfectly efficient life and the search for a truly meaningful one. Harvard professor Shoshana Zuboff puts what's at stake in really powerful terms. She says what we're losing is our right to the future tense. What does that mean? It's our ability to imagine who we want to be tomorrow and to make the choices today that will get us there. It's the absolute core of what it means to have free will. Which really leaves us with just one final question to think about. A life that's perfectly optimized by algorithms, the best career path, the most compatible partner, the most efficient schedule, it might be better by every possible metric. It might check every single box. But at the end of it all, would that life actually feel like it was yours?